All right. And we are live for a first international live. I am in sunny Dublin, and with me, I have an all time favorite. Marc, you are funny, you are smart, you're creative, you are humble, and you have an incredible background. So thank you for being with me. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
thanks for inviting me, Sabrina. And yeah, I wish I could say it's sunny London, but it's cloudy, and I'd rather be over there in Dublin having a Guinness with you. But maybe next time.
Next time. And in the meantime, I am happy to drink a few extra Guinnesses for you. Guinnesses? Is that how you say that? Why not? Is that a
Yeah, it's a
plural
plural.
Guinness?
Works.
Sure. Yeah, that works. So before we get into it, because I want to dive into a couple things with you, and we've known each other for a while now, and something that consistently comes up behind your back is Marc is one of my favorite bosses that I've ever had. And I want to talk about that. I want to unpack that. I think now more than ever, we need solid leadership, and I want to understand what you're doing differently. But before we get into that, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so Marc Wallenberg, reside in the UK. I'm not going to say the name of the place because people would never have heard it. So I'm just going to say in the south of the UK. Um, Very career. Dad was a market trader. I worked for Philips, the TV people. One day I was selling monitors. Another day I was selling vacuum cleaners and hair dryers. So you wouldn't have guessed that bit. Um, and then I joined Cisco about 15 years ago, and it's been a fantastic career in terms of, starting, I'd say starting at the bottom as a program manager in the old emerging markets, and then building a sort of valid career through EMEA and now into a global role over the period of 15 years. So, yeah, been an individual contributor and now a leader. So, yeah, it's scary being on the other side.
I was going to say which one's worse, but you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. But you're being very humble, and you just recently got promoted to senior director at Cisco. Congratulations.
Oh, no, just director. I've still got a bit of
Oh,
work to go
director.
yet. So, got a bit of
So what?
growing to
Well, what I was told, and I don't know if this is true because it's probably internal politics, is that you only really get that level when they see VP potential. So I don't know what that means. I don't know how true that is, but I was just told that the other day. So there you go,
I
and I
will
believe
take
it.
that. Well, you never know.
I'll
We could
take
be
it.
having a CEO discussion at some point, Sabrina.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. So, but here's what I would like to talk about. Like I said, so many people, I can think of at least five off the top of my head who have said, I love Marc. I love working with him. I love working for him. I want to understand, what are you doing differently? What is it about you? And maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but are there things that you're doing that are conscious, that are intentional, that make you such a wonderful leader that people want to follow, people want to work for? In fact, a very, very dear friend of mine is anxiously trying to get on your team right now. I mean, people are flocking to want to work with you, and that says a ton about you. So I want to know, how much is intentional? What are you doing to get there? What does that look like?
I think it's over the years you learn. I think you pick mentors, etc. You learn from people. Two of these, very active listener. I always take criticism. Even if I present today, I'll be happy to say to them and say, "Well, how was that? What could I learn from?" Because nothing is ever 100%. Nothing is perfect, and probably our biggest critique is ourselves. Around that. And when I went on the leadership journey, got offered the opportunity, I think it was around 5, 6 years ago. First of all, I was scared. I was like, wow, I've never done that, right? I've been an individual contributor, had to do it all my time. And the hardest thing was letting go
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being in control. And I had a great mentor and friend, and, we're still quite colleagues today that, he said, don't be afraid to fail. It's no reflection on you as a leader. You're in this position because you've earned your stripes. People see that benefit, and you're there to coach and mentor with,
Yeah.
up and coming people. So it's not more or less telling people what to do. Um, And you've learned from good bosses and bad bosses over the years, right? No one ever liked the screaming boss telling you what there is, where you regretted coming in on a Monday morning. I all agree, we have a plan. Now, I've got a goal, I've got a plan, but different people in the team have different goals and different plans. So my view is that, hey, Sabrina, I'm not going to go and give you a plan. This is the area of the business you want. This is the focus. We'll have a conversation around it. And then we'd get to a point and say, let's build a plan together, or you build a plan, come back to me, let's get some ears, let's get some eyes on it. And my success is only going to be is how I make that person successful if they achieve that plan, because I'm going to represent them in terms of what the team are doing and driving success. So it's always about, if I have a regular one-to-one, and I'll always do my one-to-ones earlier in the week, because we've had this discussion before, Sabrina, Poets Day. When it comes to a Friday, everyone knows what Poets Day off is. If they don't, I'm not going to say it here because I won't swear on a recording, but I recommend you Wikipedia it. But I'd rather get to a point where, is there something that we can impact earlier in the week versus getting to the end of the week, that person's then pissed. We can't really do anything about it. A weekend comes, before you know it, there's something else at the top of the inbox. So there's a ritual I have in trying to get my one-to-ones there. What's top of mind? What's going well? What's not going well? What help do you need? And then there's also the conscious culture in terms of, it's all right to fail. We all screw up from time. Nothing goes 100%. If it does, let's unpick that a little bit. Is there some learnings? Let's just go ahead and move on from that. So it's that. And as I said, always an active listener. I sometimes treat it as a bit of a two-way street where potentially, you can learn from your team. I'm only as good as that. As you probably know, Sabrina, sometimes the more you get in leadership, the less you are with the technology and some of the other bits. So there's certain things you have to learn and incubate around that. So I think it's a two-way street in terms of having a very open sort of relationship with the team as well.
And you touched on a couple of things. First, I think you touched on something that I notice a lot of early in career folks struggle with is finding mentors. How you had a mentor who said, hey, you need to do this. And then second, you listened to them. You listened to your team, but you listened to your mentor. And then, being able to fail. Failure is terrifying. I think we are both openly recovering people pleasers. I think that's fair to say, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. My hardest thing is saying no, especially if a meeting comes in. Even now, I get told off for pressing yes. Because I never benefit, give the doubt of anyone that wants to reach out and have some time.
Yeah. So how do you balance that then? How do you balance being, and I will take this, I don't know if you are like this, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Anyone who knows me knows that I am. Especially, I want to work with A players. I remember I had a former boss of mine, I reported to the CEO, and he said, Sabrina, you can't have a team full of A players. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. There's no way. I'm admittedly German. I'm admittedly a perfectionist and a people pleaser. So how do you take that and what you said around you have to be okay with failure? Can you reconcile the two, or is it something you progressively get better at? Are there skills behind that?
So I think it's understanding people's strengths as well. I think you're right. Probably we're up there. Your glass ceiling can be here, and sometimes you can put everyone there, and you don't understand if certain presentations or whatever isn't there. You're like, why do you not care? This is representing what you are and what you are doing. But then comes that with education, in terms of just giving some advice. What's the message you're trying to get across? Is there a picture or some bubbles that you can put up there instead of putting 300 words? Because people are reading that slide behind you, and then you could be standing there in just your tighty whities talking rubbish, and people are just reading the slide, right? Around that. So I think one of the things is how do you make sure in terms of being a bit more succinct in terms of your messaging? And then I tried to get to know the team. Moving into this role 18 months ago, there's a lot I had to learn. A lot of new things that were new to me. So I was listening, understanding what they were doing, learning where their strengths are. And then I actually had a development discussion. And we talked about strengths and weaknesses and opportunities. And I said, I'm not going to tell you your strengths. I want you to tell me what your strengths are. And then I'm actually going to come back and tell you what I've observed over the last 6 to 12 months, depending on how long they've been in the team. And then it's understanding, where those strengths lie. And the other bit was, where do you think you can improve? How can we get you there? And the other bit I'm keen on is developing the careers. I'd love it if my
Hmm.
team stay here for, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. People have aspirations. So what are those aspirations? And then how can we get you there? Because I'd rather do what we can. I'd rather lose someone in the team and keep them in the company than lose them outside the company.
Yeah.
And just a few weeks ago, we promoted one of the team as well. We had a conversation. It was there. We broadened that discussion, and we thought that was the right time to promote that person. So that person is now getting a team of 3 people. 18 months ago, that person didn't even think that was even going to be possible. So constant around that sort of listening, finding an opportunity, and sometimes you just got to take that risk.
Right. And I will say that's another thing people say behind your back. It's I always like to tell people when there's good things that are said behind someone's back, and in this case, it's so true. Um, where you're pushing someone to have a team, and they're like, I don't know if I'm ready, and you're so good about, to your point, highlighting their strengths. And I didn't know that you asked them first, what do you think your strengths are? And that's brilliant. I almost wonder if it makes sense for me. I'm even thinking about in my own team, does it make sense to get my sales team together and say, what do you think this person's strengths are? And we kind of go around the horn, so other people can hear it. Because I think sometimes we don't know, and maybe this is just a me thing, but sometimes we don't always necessarily know how we come off. Sometimes we don't always know how people are perceiving us. And we might try to be, intentionally one way, but it's coming off another way. And
Yeah,
it might
I had
be
a
actually a
mentoring
strength.
session. I had a mentoring session with a VP about 2 years ago, and he was like, 3 words to describe you, or when you're at your best. He goes, you need to go and ask 10 people in your business life, be it manager, peers, colleagues, and 5 people in your personal life. And he goes, you're not going to tell me. I'm not going to tell you. And he goes, we're going to come back in a week and we're going to review the results. And it's interesting. The top 4 or 5, I wouldn't have seen myself at, because I think everyone's just so humble, right? I'd like to think
Yeah.
that everyone is. And I didn't see that. And even, I'm not going to name names of the person, but even he was just like, okay, it's very clear you see that. He goes, I didn't see that bit. And yes, I would say X, Y, and Z. But yeah, it was very interesting to get that feedback. And it's something I learned that exercise I've done with some of my mentors as well. And they've seen themselves in a different light once they see that feedback.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting how you see, once they see that, how you see that person grow over the coming months, because they're
Hmm.
realizing what people see in them and they can sort of play to that strength.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I had a very interesting exercise, and I probably shared it in my live before, but you go to maybe 5 or 10 people that you really trust, and you can do it one of two ways. I like to do it in person because I like to put people on the spot. I think it's kind of fun for me. I don't know why. And I'll say, okay,
That's you.
that's very me. Um, you know, without thinking, just when I say this word, I want you to give me the first 3 to 5 words that come to mind. When someone says Sabrina, what do you think? And like I said, you can email it or you can ask them in
Oh, you
person.
want to ask me to say it now? Okay, that's good.
Okay, hey, you can. I don't know if I want to, but maybe. Sure, let's do it. I mean, I should eat my own dog food. Why not? But it's very telling. All right, without
Okay, if
thinking.
I'm going to say something crazy,
Yes,
driven, I see
yes.
very successful in terms of what you're doing. You radiate a lot of energy in terms of what you do. And I think, one strength I see you have is very, two actually. One is very active in terms of listening, and two, I don't think you give anyone the benefit of the doubt. You treat everyone as an equal peer in terms of, hey, I'm going to see you as an opportunity or something there, unless you really piss me off, and then you'll go down in my expectation. But
And then
I
you're
don't think you put anyone
devastating.
on a pedestal in terms of. I don't know what the word would be for that, but
You know what? I think I don't see titles. I understand that titles
yeah,
exist, but I am so inherently, intrinsically uh, fulfilled by humans. People energize me. So, all right. See, so I had a
I'm
little
going
bit
to
of
say
my
your
own dog
favorite
food.
saying: radiators, not drainers. There you go.
I'm glad you brought that up because we were talking about that offline about, we're both people pleaser, but and we're by people a lot. So tell us, what does that mean, radiators, not drainers? What does that mean?
So I think you want to surround yourself by people that are going to energize you, right? What you can bounce
Mm,
upon and you get ideas upon, and then you just get other people. You're like, geez, man, you just depressed me. You've taken me down. um, it's not saying that there's not they may have their own problems, right? You'll always give them, but I think you get to a point, and in your business and personal life, it's people you radiate from. There's
yeah.
people that are going to sort of not drain the energy, etc. But yeah, you want to like-minded people to sort of keep that energy
Yeah.
level up and creativity, etc. And I think that's something that's key in terms of that. And I won't take that as me. That was actually my boss Ivan that done that, but it's something that is something key that I've learned over the years. Surrounding yourself by like-minded and people that you can
Yeah.
really radiate upon, because I think that gets you put in there. I remember another VP saying, you're at your best when you feel uncomfortable. Guess what?
Mm,
That was a stepping stone for me to actually move from individual in a role that I really loved to moving to another role I wasn't certain about. But I actually thrived on it because, yeah, okay, you can be at your peak here and coasting, etc. And actually, I thrived on being on the back and not being at the top, listening and having to prove myself and work and listen. And people like, who's this guy coming? Who,
right.
who is he? What is he? And it was a small team that had just been created, and it was a fantastic year in terms of building that and learning from that and how what people were looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. You're touching on something that we also talked about, and I would love for you to share a little bit more about this, is talking about humble, talking about, learning from every experience. Um, your childhood and how you grew up, because it's so beautiful about how you take these different experiences and continue to challenge yourself and use it as a way, as a stepping stone. And as I've mentioned, what you do so artfully is you bring people up alongside you. But you were telling me a story about how you learned to expand sales through lessons you learned as a child.
Yeah, well, I said my dad was a market trader or flea market, depending on the local audience. So I was given a chance. If I wanted to go and earn money, you had to go. So I was up at 4 in the morning and I was selling handbags, school bags, suitcases, um, purses, wallets, etc. So always trying to upsell in terms of getting more money out of it, seeing there's opportunity. I think one of my best sales was selling a set of suitcases to a nun. I have no idea that where she was going on holiday or how many of the habits etc they had that she'd need a set of suitcases, but I take that as something good. Um, and then I took a leap into IT sales and
Hmm.
having to sell components. I'd never even used a computer, let alone sort of sell one. But they made us build one, and out of that, I realized, like everything today is a jigsaw puzzle, stuff builds to
Hmm.
create something.
Hmm.
And generally, it's asking a question. If you're buying 5 processors from me, okay, you're building 5 PCs or 2.5 if they've got redundancy, whatever. But there's a motherboard, there's a case, there's a fan, so I sold that stuff. I'm not
Yeah.
just happy with the 5 processors, so I was asked the questions. And then you become a learned and trusted advisor in terms
Hmm.
of what there was. People would care that you care about their business. You can then pull in well, how many do you build a month? You build 20. Okay, can we come up with some bulk buying deal? If you buy X, I can do this price. So yeah, it's just learning over the years. And what's the worst they're going to say? No. And I'm
Right.
used to rejection. I've had a lot of rejection in my life. It's a numbers game, but keep plugging away at it, Sabrina.
Someone once told me it doesn't get fun until you have your first no, and that always stuck with me. I mean, to your point, it's a numbers game. But what I like so much about that story, there's a couple things. One, I think sometimes we forget, we see people like you who are just so powerful and so, so poised, and you're very funny, you're so personable, and you go, oh, well, he's got it easy. he must have it so easy. And so to
I
understand
wish.
where you came from, I know. Same, trust me, same. I mean, I don't look like an immigrant. I don't sound like an immigrant, but I had all of the immigrant type of stuff growing up. And I think understanding where people came from, builds their character and is so deep inside of them and so much more meaningful than to our earlier, points than their title or their car or whatever. And you embody that. So I love that story, and I also think that's what makes you so incredibly powerful, is because you're able to ask those questions. You care about people, and you're able to put all of these pieces to the jigsaw, like you said, together because of your upbringing and because of the way, you had to do that growing up. And so I think, especially, I don't want to say especially for men, but I think especially for people in your position, it can be less than ideal or scary. I don't know what the right word is for them to share about their childhood or to share about where they came from and the lessons that they learned. So I thank you so much for even sharing that story, both with me offline and now with the people, watching. I just
Yeah.
checked the last numbers. I think the last live got about 45,000 views. So thank you for sharing that with, I don't know, 45,000 people, Mark. That's awesome. We need more people being honest.
Feel the therapy has happened now, Sabrina. So
It's therapy for you as much as it's therapy for other people. And I learn every single time we hang out. When we were just in San Jose, I had a blast hanging out with you. And it was so much fun to see leaders being real. Ivan was there and a couple of their great friends of ours. Kat was there and Emily and JL. We just had such a good time of just humans being humans. And I learn every single time we hang out, every single time we talk, and it means something to me. And so for us to be able to get on a live and share that with other people, that's what this is all about. That's what
every day's
life
a
is all
school day,
about.
as I say. And yeah, it's good, right? I think you never underestimate the person next to you. And when you see them
Mhm.
on the way up or the way down, or just maintaining them friendships, that
Yeah.
that's the real thing about being human, right? It's about being yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And you really have this ability, because of the way you are, of seeing the best in people and drawing them out. And you gave us some really actionable things that we can do to help do that, whether it's at work or, in your personal life. I mean, we can all do these kinds of things. In fact, I even use the tell me, three things as like a bar trick, when you've got a big group of people and then they all share three things about the person, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you for this. Thank you for being so honest and being so open. That's scary stuff, and not everybody's willing to do it. So thank you, and sharing your lessons with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Sabrina. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. I know we're already at time. In fact, we're like a little bit over. But I think in closing, I want to hear your final thoughts. But I would love to share my three words, my three Mark words. I would say you are hilarious. You are so freaking funny. And if you don't know Mark, you should be following him. He is just so funny. You're incredibly bright. You're incredibly bright. And what's my third word? Personable. I think you are, oh, can I use a fourth word? Humble. You are a people person, I don't want to steal your word of radiate, but you are such a people person.
That actually
So
came out number one on the list of the exercise I'd done with the VP that time. So yeah,
no
it's definitely
way. I
yeah.
see it. I see it. I totally do. So there you go. We learned a lot. I've learned even more. So thank you. Um, if anybody's looking to know more or get in touch with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Please do reach out via LinkedIn. Be more than happy to connect and spend some time, or chat to people. So yeah,
Awesome.
let's get those requests coming. Be more than happy to get to know the audience better.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Mark, thank you. You're a wonderful human, and I appreciate your friendship so much. And with
Thank you
that,
for Sabrina.
all right. Well, we are already at 20 minutes. It went way too fast. So we'll have to have you on again, but we'll see you soon.
Look forward to
Thanks,
it.
Mark.
Next
All
time
right.
live with Guinness. There you go.
You had me at live. Yeah. Add the Guinness. I'm doubling in. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.